My dad texted coldly, "I disown you. Talk to my lawyer." I replied, "Okay." Then I withdrew every dollar I was supporting them with. 48 hours later, my mom called in panic. Let me paint you the full picture, because the context matters for what comes next. I, 34 male, been working in business operations and process improvement since college. Grew up in Phoenix where my father, Marcus, built what became one of the largest construction supply businesses in the Southwest. Started in 1987 with a single truck and a rented garage, built it into a multi-million dollar operation by the time I graduated from Arizona State. Growing up, I was always the analytical one. Straight A's through high school, studied industrial engineering in college, landed a management position at a major manufacturing company right after graduation. I specialized in operational efficiency, basically taking broken systems and making them profitable again. It's what I'm good at, and companies pay serious money for that skill. My younger brother Tyler was the complete opposite. 3 years younger, spent high school playing baseball and chasing girls. Never met a problem he couldn't charm his way around. Never met a responsibility he couldn't delegate to someone else. Dad always said Tyler had people skills and would be perfect for running a family business someday. I remember one specific incident from when we were teenagers that pretty much summed up our different approaches. Dad had asked us both to reorganize the garage workshop over a weekend. I spent Saturday morning creating an inventory system, labeling everything, and setting up efficient storage zones. Tyler spent Saturday afternoon rearranging tools based on what looked good, and then disappeared to hang out with friends. When Dad saw the results, he praised Tyler for making the space look professional, while completely missing that my system had actually made everything functional and efficient. That was the pattern our entire lives. Tyler got credit for style. I got ignored for substance. The family dynamic was pretty clear from early on. Dad saw Tyler as his successor, and me as the smart kid who'd go make his fortune somewhere else, which was fine by me. I had my own career and my own life. Then Tyler met Jessica. He was 26, she was 22. They met at some upscale Phoenix nightclub. Jessica was everything you'd expect. Bleached blonde hair, designer everything, the kind of girl who'd never worked a day in her life, but somehow always had money for shopping trips. She took one look at Tyler's last name and the family business and made her move fast. I'll never forget the first time Tyler brought her to a family dinner. She spent the entire evening asking leading questions about the business. How many employees do you have? What's your biggest contract? Do you own all those trucks I see around town? When Dad mentioned they were looking at expanding into Nevada, her eyes literally lit up like she'd just heard about buried treasure. Within 6 months, she was pregnant. Within a year, they were married. Within 2 years, she had positioned herself as the modern voice the business needed, and somehow convinced Dad to put her on the payroll. The pregnancy thing was strategic too. I'm not saying she planned it, but I am saying she made sure everyone knew about it immediately and started talking about securing the family legacy for the next generation before she was even showing. At their wedding, her maid of honor speech included a line about how Jessica was finally part of a family that builds things instead of just dreaming about them. Real subtle dig at her own working-class background while positioning herself as essential to our family's future. I watched all this from a distance. I'd visit for holidays, help out with some of the business technology when Dad asked, but mostly I stayed focused on my own career. I was making good money, had my own house, my own life. The family drama wasn't my problem. Then 2019 happened and everything changed. The first sign of trouble came during Thanksgiving 2019. Dad looked exhausted, older than his 58 years. After dinner, he pulled me aside. "Son, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. What do you think about the business?" I'd been watching the numbers peripherally for months. Revenue was flat, expenses were climbing, and from what I could see, they were burning through cash reserves at an alarming rate. "What's Tyler telling you?" I asked. "He says everything's fine. Says the construction industry is just going through a rough patch, but we're positioned well for when things turn around." That should have been my first red flag. The construction industry in Phoenix was booming in 2019. If they were struggling while everyone else was thriving, the problem wasn't market conditions. I pulled up their financial statements on my laptop. What I saw made my stomach drop. Labor costs were up 40% from the previous year, but revenue had only grown 8%. Their cost per delivery had doubled because Tyler had decided they needed premium service vehicles. Basically, he'd replaced their functional delivery trucks with expensive new ones that looked better but cost twice as much to operate. But it got worse. Tyler had also hired a fleet coordinator, some guy from his baseball league who got paid $45,000 a year to basically schedule which truck went where. This was work that their dispatcher had been handling perfectly fine as part of her existing duties. Inventory turnover was a disaster. They were sitting on $200,000 worth of materials that hadn't moved in 6 months because Tyler kept ordering based on gut feelings rather than actual demand data. I found orders for specialty concrete additives that only worked in temperatures below 40 degrees. In Phoenix. In summer. When I asked Tyler about it later, he said, "You never know when we might get a big job that needs that stuff. Better to have it ready." Tyler, this is for cold weather construction. We're in the desert. Exactly. Nobody else will have it, so we'll corner the market. There was no market. Nobody builds with cold weather additives in Phoenix because it never gets cold enough to need them. Worst of all, Jessica had somehow gotten herself a $75,000 salary as Director of Marketing and Communications. Her job description was maintaining their social media presence and building brand awareness in key demographics. I looked at her Instagram. Selfies and hard hats she'd obviously never worn, posed photos with construction equipment she couldn't operate, and promotional posts about family values and local business tradition. She had 1,200 followers, most of whom appeared to be other Phoenix social media wannabes. Her LinkedIn profile was even better. She'd listed herself as Strategic Marketing Executive, with expertise in digital brand development, customer relationship optimization, and multi-platform content creation. Her previous work experience? Freelance lifestyle consultant and independent brand ambassador. Dad, I said carefully, you've got some serious operational efficiency problems. Can you help us figure it out? I should have said no. I should have told him to hire a real business consultant and stayed out of it. But he's my father, and watching him stress about losing everything he'd built was hard. That was the beginning of the end, though I didn't know it at the time. I took 2 weeks of vacation in December 2019 to dive into their operations. What I found was worse than their financial statements suggested. Tyler had been making decisions based on what felt right rather than data. He'd signed a 3-year lease on a warehouse 60% larger than needed because it looked more professional. The extra space cost $4,000 monthly and sat empty except for Jessica's content creation area, a corner with good lighting for Instagram photos. He'd hired 6 friends from his baseball league at $18 to $22 an hour for work their existing team could handle with better organization. One hire was particularly memorable. Brad, the customer experience specialist, who called customers asking vague questions like, "How did everything go?" The customers hated it. One contractor told me, "Some guy keeps calling asking how my concrete pour went." I ordered gravel, not concrete, and that was 3 weeks ago. Tell him to stop calling me. Jessica's marketing had cost $30,000 in the past year. She'd hired a photographer, spent $8,000 on a website redesign that looked identical to the old one, and convinced Dad to sponsor a youth baseball charity golf tournament for $15,000 to connect with construction professionals. When I asked about the logic, her response was pure gold. Marketing isn't always about direct ROI. Sometimes you invest in community relationships that pay dividends over time. What dividends? Brand recognition. People see our name and associate it with community values. How many new customers did we get? That's not how marketing works, Michael. You can't reduce everything to simple metrics. We got 0 new customers. 0. Their inventory system was a disaster. They'd run out of common items while sitting on pallets of specialty materials that moved once yearly. Delivery scheduling was based on Tyler's daily mood. They were paying 30% above market rate because Tyler liked working with people he trusted. I spent Christmas break building them a proper framework. A 15-minute call with their concrete supplier saved $35,000 annually. They'd been asking Tyler about volume discounts for 2 years. When I presented the plan to Dad on January 2nd, he stared at the numbers for 5 minutes. This would save us almost $300,000 a year. Conservative estimate, probably closer to $400,000 once fully implemented. Do it, Dad said immediately. Whatever you need. I took 3 months unpaid leave and moved home. The inventory system took 6 weeks to implement. Staff training was an adventure. When I showed them the new routing system, their lead driver said, "You mean we don't have to zigzag across town 12 times a day anymore?" Tyler kept disappearing. Client meetings became 3-hour golf games. Supplier visits coincided with Phoenix Suns home games. Jessica was actively hostile. When I suggested managing social media internally, she delivered a 20-minute speech about brand consistency and building narratives that resonate with target demographics. I asked her to show correlation between marketing spend and customer acquisition. She said data was too simplistic to capture the holistic impact of brand development. They'd gained 12 new customers in 2019 with a $30,000 marketing budget. That's $2,500 per customer in an industry where average lifetime value was $8,000. By April 2020, the transformation was obvious. Delivery efficiency up 45%, inventory costs down 30%, customer satisfaction improved. The business was generating $35,000 more monthly profit. Dad called me his miracle worker. Tyler took credit for implementing new operational strategies. Jessica posted Instagram stories about family business innovation and dedication. In May 2020, Dad called a family meeting. I expected to discuss formalizing my role. Instead, I found Tyler and Jessica with printed presentations. Jessica wore a business suit I'd never seen and had slides about leveraging core competencies and optimizing human capital allocation. One slide was titled, Strategic Organizational Realignment for Sustainable Growth. The bottom line, they wanted me in an advisory role while Tyler assumed operational control. Jessica would become Executive Vice President of Strategic Development with a $90,000 salary. Tyler needs to take ownership of the company he's going to inherit, Dad said. You've got your own career. Jessica smiled that fake corporate smile. Think of it as promoting you to strategic advisor. Then came the equity restructuring. Tyler gets 65% when Dad retires. I keep 15%. Jessica gets 10%. When I asked for reimbursement of my $150,000 investment and consulting fees, Dad said, family members don't charge family for help. That's when I realized they'd planned this from the beginning. Jessica's corporate presentation, Tyler's talking points, Dad's passive agreement. They'd orchestrated pushing me out as soon as I finished fixing their problems. I walked out knowing exactly what I was going to do. Here's what they didn't understand about the improvements I'd made to their business. When I rebuilt their operational systems, I didn't just reorganize their existing processes. I created entirely new infrastructure that ran through systems I controlled. Their inventory management system, built on software I'd licensed and configured through my consulting company. Their supplier relationships, negotiated through contracts that listed me as the primary contact. Their customer database, hosted on servers I paid for and maintained. Their delivery routing optimization, based on algorithms I'd developed and implemented through my own technology platform. Even their bookkeeping had been moved to a system I'd set up and managed through my business accounts. I hadn't just improved their business. I'd made their business completely dependent on infrastructure they didn't own. But it was all legal. When I'd started the project, I'd presented Dad with a consulting agreement that clearly outlined intellectual property ownership, system licensing, and termination clauses. He'd signed it without reading it because we trust you to handle the details. The agreement specified that if my consulting engagement was terminated, I retained ownership of all proprietary systems and had the right to revoke access with 30 days' notice. Tyler and Jessica had just terminated my engagement. I spent the weekend documenting everything. Every system I'd built, every relationship I'd established, every process improvement I'd implemented. Then I drafted a formal notice of contract termination and system access revocation. But I also did something else. I created detailed documentation showing exactly how much value I'd added to their business. Revenue increases, cost savings, efficiency improvements, all quantified and time-stamped. I calculated that my improvements had generated $420,000 in additional value in the 4 months since implementation. My time investment had been worth approximately $180,000 in consulting fees at market rates. My direct financial investment was $150,000. They owed me $750,000 in total value. They'd offered me 15% equity in a business I'd saved. Monday morning, I sent certified letters to all their major suppliers, notifying them that I would no longer be managing the relationship and that they should establish new points of contact for future business. I sent similar letters to their top 15 customers, explaining that due to organizational changes, I would no longer be overseeing their accounts, but that I was launching an independent consulting practice and would be happy to continue supporting their projects through my new company. The letter to customers was carefully worded. While I've enjoyed working with your projects through Marcus Construction Supply, I'm excited to announce that I'm launching an independent consulting firm focused on operational efficiency and project optimization. I'd welcome the opportunity to discuss how I can continue supporting your construction supply needs through this new venture. And then I changed every password, revoked all system access, and transferred their customer database to my personal servers. By 10 a.m., Tyler was calling me. What did you do? Nothing works? I terminated our consulting agreement, I said calmly. You said you were ready to take full control. You can't just shut everything down. It's my intellectual property. You wanted me out, so I'm out. This is sabotage. It's contract enforcement. You have 30 days to transition to your own systems, as specified in the agreement your father signed. Tyler was practically hyperventilating. We can't operate without those systems. You should have thought about that before you decided I wasn't valuable enough to keep around. That afternoon, I received a call from my attorney. Dad had contacted him demanding I restore access immediately. My lawyer reviewed the consulting agreement and called me back an hour later. They don't have a legal leg to stand on, he said. Everything you did is covered under the intellectual property clauses. They can demand all they want, but you're under no obligation to provide ongoing access to systems you developed and own. What if they try to sue? With what case? They terminated your consulting agreement, and you're following the termination procedures they agreed to. If anything, they owe you money for early termination penalties. The next day, Jessica called me crying. Michael, please, you're destroying everything we've built together. Think about what this is doing to your father. I am thinking about it, I said. I'm thinking about how my father let you and Tyler push me out after I saved his business. I'm thinking about how none of you cared about family when you decided I wasn't worth keeping around. We never said you weren't valuable. Jessica, you literally presented a PowerPoint explaining why Tyler deserved credit for my work and why you deserved a bigger ownership stake than me. That's not what that was about. That's exactly what it was about. You wanted the benefits of my work without having to acknowledge my contributions. By the end of the week, they'd lost 3 major clients who decided to follow me rather than deal with Tyler's incompetence. The first month was beautiful to watch. Without my inventory management system, they couldn't track what they had in stock. Tyler ordered $60,000 worth of materials they didn't need while running completely out of items required for active projects. The first major screw-up happened within a week. A contractor called needing 200 bags of Portland cement for a foundation pour scheduled for Monday morning. Tyler confidently told them it would be delivered Sunday afternoon. Sunday came and they had no Portland cement in stock. Tyler had to make emergency calls to 3 different suppliers, paying premium rates for weekend delivery, just to fulfill a basic order they should have had on hand. The emergency procurement cost them $1,800 in additional fees and delivery charges for an order that should have cost $400. But Tyler spun it as going above and beyond for customer service. Their biggest client, Morrison Development, called me directly after Tyler quoted them $90,000 for a project that should have cost $50,000. What's happening over there? Morrison asked. Tyler seems to have no idea what anything costs. Organizational transition, I said diplomatically. I'm no longer with the company, but I'd be happy to provide you with accurate pricing through my new consulting firm. Morrison was one of Phoenix's largest residential developers. They'd been working with Marcus Construction Supply for 8 years, but they'd primarily dealt with me for the past 2 years because I understood their project timelines and material requirements. I got Morrison's contract and their referral to 3 other major developers. Jessica tried to maintain their social media presence, but without access to customer data or project information, she was posting generic content that had nothing to do with their actual business. She did a video tour of their warehouse, wearing a hard hat and safety vest, but you could tell she'd never worn either before because she kept adjusting them like they were uncomfortable costumes. The video was supposed to showcase their professional operations and safety standards. Instead, it showed Jessica stumbling over inventory she couldn't identify, mispronouncing technical terms, and accidentally knocking over a display of paint cans while trying to gesture dramatically at the camera. The video got attention, but not the kind they wanted. Comments ranged from, "Is this a joke?" to, "Who let the Instagram model into the construction site?" to, "This is what happens when you hire based on looks instead of qualifications." Jessica deleted the video after 6 hours, but not before multiple people had saved copies. One construction worker created a remix version set to circus music that got 15,000 views on TikTok. Tyler was bleeding money trying to rebuild what I'd taken. He hired an IT consultant who told him it would cost $80,000 to replicate my inventory management system. He hired a business process consultant who explained that recreating my supplier relationships would take 6 months and probably cost them their competitive pricing. The IT consultant's estimate was actually low. When Tyler saw the scope of work required to rebuild everything from scratch, he tried to negotiate a cheaper solution. "Can't you just build something simpler?" he asked. "Sure," the consultant replied, "but it won't do what Michael's system did. You'll lose about 60% of the functionality." What functionality do we really need? That question told me everything I needed to know about Tyler's understanding of what I'd built. He hired a marketing firm to professionalize their online presence. They charged $15,000 to basically copy what Jessica had been doing, except with better photography. Meanwhile, their operational efficiency was falling apart. Without my delivery routing system, their trucks were making half as many deliveries per day. Without my supplier relationships, they were paying 25% more for materials. Without my inventory optimization, they were sitting on hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of stuff they couldn't use while constantly running out of basic supplies. The delivery problems were particularly painful to watch. I'd optimized their routes to minimize drive time and fuel costs while maximizing the number of stops per day. Tyler went back to the old system of whoever's available takes whatever order comes in next. This resulted in trucks driving across town multiple times per day, sometimes passing job sites they'd already visited to deliver materials they could have brought in one trip. Their fuel costs increased 70% in the first month. Dad called me 3 weeks after the transition. Son, maybe we can work something out. Come back and we'll discuss a better arrangement. The arrangement was that you were buying out my consulting contract, I said. That's $150,000 plus penalties for early termination. The total is $220,000. We don't have that kind of cash available. You had cash for Jessica's salary increase and Tyler's new truck last month? That's different. No, Dad. That's exactly the same. You had money for the things you prioritized. You just didn't prioritize honoring our agreement. By the second month, they were behind on supplier payments. Tyler had to lay off 4 warehouse workers because they couldn't afford payroll. Jessica's Instagram posts became increasingly desperate. Support local family business, and celebrating 35 years of community service, and quality you can trust from people who care. The engagement on her posts dropped to almost nothing. Hard to build community support when you can't deliver what you promise. The real entertainment started when Tyler decided he was going to modernize the business with his own ideas. Remember, Tyler had spent 3 years taking credit for improvements I'd made while having no understanding of how any of it actually worked. Now he was running the show, and his natural business instincts were finally getting a chance to shine. First, he decided they needed better brand visibility. He spent $12,000 on vehicle wraps for their delivery trucks, bright orange with the company logo covering almost every surface. The trucks looked like giant traffic cones, but the real genius was in the design. Tyler had insisted on including Jessica's headshot on every truck along with the tagline, "Family Values, Professional Results." So now they had delivery trucks driving around Phoenix with Jessica's glamour shots plastered on the sides. Customers started calling them the Instagram trucks, not exactly the professional image Tyler was going for. Then he renegotiated their warehouse lease. Instead of the professional space they'd been renting, he moved operations to a cheaper location on the outskirts of town. The new warehouse was $2,000 less per month, but it added an average of 45 minutes to every delivery route and was in a neighborhood where 3 of their trucks got broken into within the first month. Tyler's logic: real estate is about location, location, location. But for a warehouse, you just need space. Why pay downtown prices when we can get twice the space for half the price? What he missed: their customers were downtown contractors who needed quick deliveries. Adding 90 minutes of round-trip drive time to every delivery made their service significantly less competitive. His masterstroke was implementing what he called premium customer service. This meant assigning a personal account representative to every client. Basically, Tyler hired 6 of his friends to call customers weekly and ask if they needed anything. The customers hated it. These weren't trained sales professionals. They were Tyler's golf buddies, making scripted calls about construction supplies they didn't understand. Morrison Development told me, some guy called asking if we wanted to upgrade our rebar order to premium grade. We were ordering decorative gravel. Another customer complained, your brother's friend called trying to sell me architectural concrete for a drainage project. When I told him I needed standard concrete, he asked if I was sure I didn't want to elevate my project's aesthetic impact. The premium service team was costing them $18,000 a month in salaries while actively annoying their customer base. Jessica, meanwhile, decided she needed to leverage digital marketing synergies. She hired a social media consultant who convinced her to launch a TikTok account featuring behind-the-scenes construction supply content. The videos were exactly what you'd expect. Jessica pretending to operate equipment she'd never touched, explaining construction processes she didn't understand, and attempting to make cement mixing look fun and relatable. One video featured her trying to explain different types of concrete while wearing a white dress and high heels in the warehouse. She kept referring to concrete mixtures as recipes and talking about how each blend has its own personality. Another video showed her attempting to drive a forklift while giving safety tips. The video ended with her backing into a stack of drywall sheets while laughing nervously and saying, "Oops." That's why safety training is so important. The TikTok account got some attention, but mostly from people making fun of her. Construction workers started sharing her videos in industry groups as examples of how not to run a construction supply business. One video got 50,000 views, but only because she accidentally knocked over a display while trying to film herself walking confidently through the warehouse. The comments were not kind. This is what happens when you put someone in charge who's never worked a real job. My toddler has better spatial awareness. How is this person running a construction company? By month 3, their operational costs had increased 60% while their revenue dropped 30%. They were burning through their remaining cash reserves at an unsustainable rate. Dad had to take out a second mortgage on his house to cover business expenses. That's when the real begging started. Month 4 brought the first real panic call. "Michael," Dad's voice was shaky when he called on a Tuesday morning. "We need to talk. The business is in serious trouble." I heard. "Tyler made some mistakes. Jessica's initiatives didn't work out the way we hoped. We need someone who understands operations." "You need $220,000 to buy out my consulting contract. Until that happens, I'm not available." "Son, we don't have that money. You know we don't have that money. You had money for Tyler's premium service team. You had money for Jessica's marketing consultant. You had money for truck wraps and warehouse moves and TikTok campaigns. You just didn't have money for honoring contracts with me. That's not fair. Fair would have been giving me a real ownership stake when I saved your business. Fair would have been recognizing my contributions instead of pushing me out for Tyler's ego. Fair would have been treating our agreement like a legal document instead of a suggestion." I hung up. That same week, I got a call from one of their suppliers. "Michael, what's going on over there? Tyler ordered $15,000 worth of roofing materials, but their payment is 3 weeks overdue." When I called to follow up, some girl told me she'd circle back with the accounting team, and hung up. The girl was Jessica. The accounting team was her friend Melissa, who was apparently as confused about accounts payable as she was about everything else. I started getting more calls like this. Suppliers who were used to dealing with me were now trying to collect payments from Tyler and Jessica, who apparently didn't understand that net 30 meant they actually had to pay within 30 days. The next week, Jessica started reaching out to extended family members, trying to paint me as the villain who was letting jealousy destroy everything the family built. She called my Aunt Sarah. "Michael is sabotaging the business because he's bitter about Tyler getting the leadership role. He's willing to destroy Dad's life work just to prove a point. But here's the thing about family. They'd all watched Jessica's act for years." Aunt Sarah called me the same day, laughing. "That girl actually tried to tell me you were the problem. After watching her spend money like she was printing it herself for 3 years. She mentioned something about Tyler's natural leadership abilities and how you never understood the people side of business. I told her the only thing Tyler ever led was his high school baseball team to a losing season. My uncle called me too. Jessica's making the rounds, trying to get people to pressure you into coming back. She's telling everyone you destroyed their computer systems and that you're holding the family hostage. Nobody's buying it. We all remember who actually worked and who just showed up for the Christmas party photos." Tyler's friends started distancing themselves too. The guys he'd hired for his premium service team quit when their paychecks started bouncing. His golf buddies stopped returning his calls when he kept trying to get them to invest in turning the business around. One of Tyler's former teammates called me. "Dude, Tyler's been asking everyone for money. Says he needs $50,000 to stabilize operations, and he'll pay it back with interest. But everyone's heard what happened with your deal. If he screwed over his own brother, why would we trust him with our money?" The final straw came when their insurance company dropped them. Jessica had posted a video of Tyler operating a forklift while eating lunch, trying to show how efficient and multifaceted their team was. The insurance company decided they were a liability risk. Without insurance, they couldn't fulfill any major contracts. Without contracts, they couldn't pay suppliers. Without suppliers, they had no business. Tyler showed up at my apartment on a Sunday afternoon in month 5. He looked terrible, unshaven, exhausted, wearing clothes that looked like he'd slept in them. "I need help," he said. I let him stand in my doorway for a minute before responding. "What kind of help?" "Business help. I don't know what I'm doing. I thought it would be easier." "Easier than what?" "Than watching you make it look easy." That was the closest thing to honesty I'd heard from him in years. "Why should I help you?" "Because Dad's going to lose everything. The house, the business, everything. Dad chose to risk everything when he let you and Jessica push me out." Tyler's voice cracked. "She left. Jessica left, took the kids and moved back to California. Said she wasn't going to waste her life on a failing business." I wasn't surprised. Jessica had been posting increasingly frequent photos of herself at expensive restaurants and shopping centers, usually with captions about investing in self-care during difficult times. When the business started failing, her posts shifted to motivational quotes about new beginnings and not being afraid to make tough decisions. Her final Instagram post before leaving Phoenix was a photo of herself at the airport with the caption, "Sometimes you have to choose your own happiness over other people's expectations." Grateful for this new chapter. New beginnings, self-love. Moving forward, she'd already changed her relationship status to single and started posting photos with some tech executive from California within 2 weeks. Smart move, I told Tyler. Rats leave sinking ships. I know I messed up. I know you're better at this than me. Just help me save what's left. Here's the thing. I could have helped them. I could have walked back in there, rebuilt their systems, restructured their operations, pulled them back from the brink. The business was salvageable if someone competent took control immediately, but they'd already shown me exactly who they were. Dad had chosen favoritism over merit. Tyler had chosen ego over competence. Jessica had chosen money over loyalty. So instead, I made Tyler an offer. I'll buy the business from Dad for $300,000. I'll keep him on as a consultant, and you can start fresh somewhere else. $300,000? That business was worth over $1 million before everything went wrong. The business I built was worth over $1 million. The business you've been running for 5 months is worth whatever someone's willing to pay for it. You can't be serious. Tyler, your business is 3 months from bankruptcy. Your insurance is gone. Your client base is gone. Your operational efficiency is gone. I'm offering to buy a failing company for more than it's worth and throw in a job for Dad. That's generous. He left without taking the deal. 2 weeks later, Dad called me himself. Michael, Tyler told me about your offer. We can't accept $300,000 for a business that's been in our family for 35 years. Dad, in 3 months, you're going to lose that business to bankruptcy and get nothing. I'm offering you $300,000 and a consulting job. That's $300,000 more than you'll have if you keep letting Tyler run it into the ground. There has to be another way. There is. Pay me the $220,000 you owe me. Give me operational control and I'll rebuild everything. Again, we don't have $220,000. Then take the $300,000 while you still can. He hung up. The end came faster than even I expected. By month 6, they were 3 months behind on their warehouse lease. Their primary supplier had cut them off for non-payment. They had 4 trucks repoed because Tyler had missed the payments while spending money on his brand visibility campaign. The repo situation was particularly pathetic. Tyler had been so focused on making the trucks look impressive that he'd forgotten to make the payments. When the repo team showed up, Jessica's face was literally being towed away on the side of a truck she couldn't afford. Dad called me on a Wednesday morning, and I could hear the defeat in his voice. Michael, the bank is foreclosing on the business loan. We're going to lose the warehouse, the remaining trucks, all the inventory. Everything. What about Tyler's premium customer service? What about Jessica's digital marketing synergies? Please don't. I know you're angry, but this is 35 years of work disappearing. 35 years of work that I saved, and that Tyler destroyed, and that you let happen because you thought family loyalty meant ignoring incompetence. Hey, what do you want from me? Nothing, Dad. I don't want anything from you anymore. But that wasn't entirely true. What I wanted was for him to understand what had really happened. So I laid it out for him. Dad, I spent 3 months of my life and $150,000 of my money saving a business that was failing because of mismanagement. I created systems that increased your profitability by $400,000 a year. I built relationships that brought in millions of dollars in contracts. I know, son, and we were grateful. No, you weren't. You were grateful until Tyler's feelings got hurt. Then you decided my work didn't matter, because Tyler needed to feel important. You gave away my contributions to make your favorite son feel better about himself. That's not how it happened. That's exactly how it happened. And when I asked to be compensated fairly, you told me family doesn't charge family. But when Tyler wanted new trucks and Jessica wanted salary increases and premium marketing consultants, somehow there was always money for that. I could hear him crying on the other end of the line. We can fix this. Come back and we'll make it right. You can't fix 35 years of playing favorites, Dad. And you can't fix the fact that when it mattered most, you chose Tyler's ego over our family's future. The business closed 2 weeks later. Dad had to sell the house to pay off the personal guarantees he'd signed on the business loans. The bankruptcy auction brought in enough to cover most of their debts, but not enough to save anything. Tyler moved to Nevada and got a job with a construction company doing basic project coordination. No management responsibilities, just following other people's instructions and keeping his mouth shut. His new boss told me when I called for a reference. We hired him specifically for grunt work. His resume shows management experience, but honestly, he seems more comfortable when someone else is making the decisions. Jessica's new marriage made it into Phoenix social media circles. She'd found herself a tech executive who apparently appreciated her marketing expertise enough to put a ring on it within 6 months of meeting her. Her Instagram transformation was immediate. Gone were the construction site photos, replaced by pictures of wine tastings and spa days, with captions about finally living authentically. Dad moved into a small apartment and started driving for a rideshare company to make ends meet. The man who'd built a multi-million-dollar business from nothing was now driving strangers around Phoenix for $15 an hour. Dad called me last week. First time we'd talked since the business closed 18 months ago. Son, I've been thinking about everything that happened, about the mistakes I made. Okay, you were right. About Tyler, about Jessica, about the business. I let my feelings cloud my judgment. I didn't respond immediately. I'd been waiting for this conversation for 2 years, but now that it was happening, I felt mostly empty. I'm proud of what you've built, he continued. Your business, your success. You proved you didn't need us after all. I never wanted to prove that, Dad. I wanted to be part of something we built together. I know. And I threw that away because I was more worried about Tyler's feelings than your contributions. We talked for 20 minutes. He told me about his new apartment, his rideshare work, how Tyler was doing in Nevada. He asked about my business, my house, whether I was happy. At the end of the call, he asked, "Is there any chance we could rebuild our relationship? Not the business. I know that's gone. But us? I don't know," I said honestly. You showed me who I was to you when you had to choose. That's not something you can take back. I understand. But I'm not angry anymore. Anger was just the pain of expecting different from you. Now I know what to expect. We hung up with an agreement to talk again in a few months. Maybe we'll rebuild something. Maybe we won't. But it'll be on my terms this time. Tyler sent me a LinkedIn connection request a few weeks ago. I declined it. Some bridges don't get rebuilt. They just burn completely down. Last Saturday, I was having lunch at a restaurant in Phoenix when I saw Jessica. She was with her new husband and his kids, playing the part of the perfect stepmom for her social media audience. She saw me but pretended she didn't. I felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, no regret, just nothing. That evening, I looked at my business plan for next year. We're expanding into California and Texas. I'm hiring a business development director and 2 senior consultants. My associates are talking about profit sharing and equity stakes for long-term employees.